AOC used to be considered the only bartender that couldn't bring anything to the table, but now she's turned into one of the more despicable humans we've ever come across, and it should enrage you. So the House adopted a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk, saying Charlie was a courageous American patriot who boldly lived out his faith with conviction, courage, and compassion. It also calls upon all Americans, regardless of race, party affiliation, or creed, to reject political violence, recommit to respectful debate, uphold American values, and respect one another as fellow Americans. Obviously, this is upsetting a lot of Democrats because they can never allow anything good to happen in the world without whining. So AOC, of course, needs to give her loud and obnoxious opinion, saying Charlie Kirk's rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, and that this resolution brings pain to those affected by segregation, Jim Crow, and the legacy of bigotry. This is exactly the kind of rhetoric that caused the assassination to occur. So she's saying Charlie was this raging racist that promoted segregation, wants to strip the Civil Rights Act. You've got to be kidding me. Please watch the entirety of this clip.
I thank Gentleman Representative Green for his graciousness. Today, the Republican House majority brought to the floor a resolution honoring, quote, honoring the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's assassination was a horrific and vile attack and incident of political violence. And condemning the depravity of Kirk's brutal murder is a straightforward matter, one that is especially important to help stabilize an increasingly unsafe and volatile political environment where everyday people feel more at risk. We can deeply disagree and come together as a country to denounce the horror of this killing. And it is not a license for the abuse of power and whitewashing of American history. Today's resolution only underscores the majority's recklessness by choosing to author this condemnation and honoring on a purely partisan basis, instead of uniting Congress in this tragedy with one of the many bipartisan options to condemn political violence and Kirk's murder, as we did with the late Melissa Hortman. Instead, the majority proceeded with a resolution that brings great pain to the millions of Americans who endured segregation, Jim Crow, and the legacy of bigotry today. We should be clear about who Charlie Kirk was. A man who believed that the Civil Rights Act that granted Black Americans the right to vote was a mistake. Who, after the violent attack on Paul Pelosi, claimed that, quote, some amazing patriot, unquote, should bail out his brutal assailant, and accused Jews of controlling, quote, not just the colleges, it's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it, unquote. His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working, quote, working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution. It is equally important that Congress does unite to reject the government's attempt to weaponize this moment into an all-out assault on free speech across the country, all in the name of Charlie Kirk. President Trump and the FCC are now cynically threatening to shut down ABC and any outlets who give airtime to the administration's political critics. This is a disgusting attack on the American people and the very First Amendment rights that define us as a country. It is also the ABC Corporation's responsibility to refuse to embolden and participate in this corruption and escalation of censorship. We continue to pray for Mr. Kirk's family and loved ones in the wake of this terrible act. I am thinking especially of his children and his wife, whose grief cannot be measured. And with that, I yield back
Of course, she wants to bring up censorship. Funny how Democrats are defending the First Amendment now. In my video previously, I spoke how there's a difference between news networks with a broadcasting license versus ones without, because they are held to a higher standard, particularly on indecency. ABC was the one that fired Jimmy point blank, period. He lost millions of viewers, probably millions of dollars, so that's a nice try to talk about the censorship. But back to AOC. Why did she bring up whitewashing in American history? Democrats are literally the ones trying to wash white people from existence, touting diversity is our greatest strength, the most false claim in history. So is now a good time to request AOC to be stripped of all committee assignments while we're on the topic with Ilhan Omar? I mean, it wouldn't do anything because just like Ilhan Omar, she hasn't passed a single key piece of legislation. So, she's just another Twitter activist. We can do all this in one shot. Buy an Ilhan Omar censure and get an AOC censure for free.